Here's how to actually win in Marvel Rivals. Step 1. Rewire your entire brain to understand video games are supposed to be entertainment and fun, and ultimately whether you win or lose in this game doesn't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, so why do you even care that much? The real win is the fun and the friends we make along the way, right? Right? Alright, now that I got that hogwash out of the way, how do you actually win in this game? What's up guys? Rivals Research here, digging into this question. There is a lot here, a lot of opinions. But we're going to get into some game theory today. We're going to really dissect this game, as well as give some tips to help you get more of those elusive dubs. First of all, Marvel Rivals is an objective-based game. If your objective is to have fun, good for you, man. That's great. Keep having fun. But if your objective is to be effective and win/contribute to winning, this video is for you. Before we dive deeper, though, let's start wider. There are 3 main game modes in the main playlist. Convergence, which is my favorite mode, where you are escorting or preventing something from reaching the final destination before time expires. You can play through the entirety of the map this way, and the points of battle change drastically. The other main mode is Domination. This is sort of a king of the hill, but the goal is to dominate an area and lock it down more than the other team and wait for a meter to fill up till it gets to 100%. Unfortunately, there is a third mode called Resource Rumble. Not a horrible concept, I would say executed a little poorly. It is a variant of Domination, but instead of keeping your progress, you steal progress from the other team, and I think part of why people want to leave as soon as they load into it is because some of these games can last a very long time. And there's also more arcadey modes that are fun, zombies, 18 vs 18 Annihilation, but our focus today is going to be on the core modes, and for the sake of the video, I'm going to lump Domination and Resource Rumble strategies together because they're pretty similar. If you want to win in this game, it is paramount that you remember the objective. Again, if your objective's fun, do whatever you want, champ, but if you want to win, please do not treat this game like Team Deathmatch. There is a singular objective responsible for whether you see victory or defeat on your end screen. And here's a great question to ask ourselves. Is how I'm playing in this game helping my team's progress towards the objective? For instance, if you are in overtime and you have the choice between chasing someone and getting an elim or staying on points so your team doesn't lose, what's the right move there? I know some might black out whenever they see an enemy running away and chase, but smart gamers play the objective, right? Spider-Man mains? JK, no shade, no shade. If winning is all about the quote-unquote objective, then how do you win the objective in Marvel Rivals? So if the objective in the game is to control space, either a payload or an area, it's about keeping the enemy off point so that you and your team can control it. If you are able to keep the enemy off the point while you are in control of it, that is progress towards winning it. Pretty simple, right? And there are 3 main ways that this happens. One, and the main one, is through eliminations. If you're able to defeat the other team and send them back to spawn, it takes them a while to get back into the fight. This is the best way to win games ultimately. So much of this game is about winning team fights. The flow of the game is often big team fight, and then whoever wins that gets objective progress. And then you have another big team fight, and whoever wins that gets objective progress. That is all true, unless you're not playing with your team and you are drip feeding the enemy team by going to point and dying by yourself. A huge step to winning in this game is play with your team. Look around you. Are you trying to 1v6? Maybe don't try that. Anyway, getting eliminations, swinging team fights by number advantages are needed to win the objective. But there's more. Another option is to force the enemy to retreat. If you're a tank and you're phenomenal at creating space, demanding enemy attention, etc., and you push the enemy team off the point from your presence alone, that is moving the needle towards winning. If you backcap and make the enemy team retreat whenever they are overextended, that is progress towards winning. If you're a dive character that's constantly threatening supports, forcing their team to retreat back to them so their supports can stay alive and lose sight of the objective, all of that is huge. And the last thing I'll mention in keeping the enemy off the point is by extending your defensive presence. So in Convergence, if you keep 3 people on the payload to maximize its speed, and then you make the other 3 extend further to slow the enemy team from getting back to point, that's amazing. In domination, you can move your whole team closer to the enemy spawn and make it hard for people to get back to the point without dying. But you need to be close enough that if someone tried to back cap, you could get back to the point before that point was taken by the enemy team. Even if you are not getting eliminations, if you are able to keep the enemy off the point while you are in control of it, all of that is progress towards winning. Now let's talk about some of the factors that will help you then win these team fights, because that's really what a lot of this game is about, is winning team fights, whether it's eliminating or simply keeping the enemy team at bay. I'll start by saying this. There's often an attacking and a defending team in this game, and sometimes it's consistent. I would say Convergence, there's a team, generally speaking, that is trying to prevent the moving of the payload and is often very defensive and trying to be this immovable object. And there is an attacking team that is trying to break through the defenses and be this unstoppable force as the payload gets closer to the final destination. That's fairly consistent with Convergence, though in comp games it flips around to give both teams a shot at it. But even in Convergence, and for sure in Domination, it shifts back and forth about who the attacking and defending team really is. You could argue whoever is in control of the point is always the defensive team. Whoever is not is the attacking team. It really does seem to shift in this game. And there's really only one mode where it's somewhat neutral, and that's the beginning of domination rounds, where the point is not active. But even that, it could be a matter of whoever gets to the point first and sets up their defenses there will win, or whoever jumps on the other team first and swings a team fight will win. So in summary with that, there is normally always an attacking and defending team, and it oftentimes switches, though you could argue Convergence, who's attacking and defending, is pretty consistent. And with Convergence, it's acceptable, I think, to build fully into an attack-focused team or a defense-focused team, depending on whether you are escorting or preventing the movement of the payload. So defense comps, for example, might look like a Penny, Magneto, Mr. Fantastic, Winter Soldier, Invis, and Luna. Comps that are tankier with high healing to stall and prevent the team from moving an inch. Or if you're attacking, maybe it's more like Venom, Psylocke, Magneto, Hela, Mantis, Luna, something like that, where you have several on your team that are trying to flank and isolate and break down the defenses of a team. However, in most circumstances, I would argue the best way to win team fights, first of all, it comes down to skill, duh, no brainer, and also what your team composition is. Meaning, whenever I say team composition or shortened comp, it means the 6 heroes that your team is made up of. There are many heroes with tons of playstyles in this game, tons of roles they can fill, and the game divides them into 3 categories that are generally accurate and helpful ways to distinguish them. But just because there are 3 categories, don't think that's all you need to know about roles. There is so much more nuance to that. And I'm going to have a future video breaking down the roles and playstyles or positions of each hero. So if you're interested in that, definitely stick around and subscribe for more. But the 3 roles in this game are Vanguard, which are the tanks of the game, very high survivability, demanding attention. There are Duelists, who are more DPS or damage-oriented heroes, focused around getting eliminations of the other team, while also being squishier than tanks, with maybe a couple exceptions there. And Strategists, who have the ability to heal their team and provide support in various different ways. But some of their damage is no joke either. These 3 roles kind of fill the traditional 3 roles in many RPG games: a tank, damage, and healer. Each comp ought to be made up with each of these. If you find yourself losing a lot of games and it's because you have 5 DPS and 1 strategist, that is why. When creating a comp, there are 2 things that I would recommend considering: balance and counterpicking. And beginning with balance, I think there are 2 aspects of balance that are important for picking a team comp. The first one is balance in terms of the distribution of roles within the comp. Looking at a site like Rivals Tracker, they show the most picked and also the highest win rate breakdowns of each of the comps. So without question, the most popular pick rate and win rate is 2 Vanguards, 2 Duelists, and 2 Strategists. Very easy to remember, 222 for short. But we aren't locked into role queue like a game like Overwatch. Love it or hate it, that's how it is. I personally love it because it allows you to get more creative about how your team works and plays together. But that's, generally speaking, the best and most effective breakdown is 222. The next best, and also the next most popular, is the 1-3-2 comp. And though people can talk ill of triple strategist compositions, and I get it, they can be very unfun to play against if they are good, the average win rate and pick rate is much, much lower. The only other comp that I might say has some amount of value would be a 1-2-3 comp based on this, because it's picked a decent amount, but it seems like it's normally not very effective. And part of why I think the 2-2-2 distribution is so valuable is if a team gets a pick on any of these roles, there is another of that role that is still out there and providing value for the team. But let's say that you are in a 1-3-2 comp where you only have one Vanguard and your Vanguard dies. You have no one to eat up tons of damage and your squishy team is going to be vanquished very quickly. So simply stated, I would recommend for beginners especially, but really for most comps, go 2-2-2, but you don't have to stick with it. The good rule of thumb for everyone is to make sure there is at least 1 to 2 Vanguards, 1 to 3 duelists, and 2 to 3 strategists. You cannot win consistently with only one strategist, because if that strategist dies, your team is toast. So that's what I mean whenever I say balance in terms of role distribution in your comp. But it's also about balance of how they play. Since who is attacking and defending is different at different points in a match, having a comp that doesn't have any glaring weaknesses in that way may be helpful. And what I mean by this is a balanced comp would have heroes that can stall and can hold the point well, and can also have heroes that can disrupt and flank and move around the enemy to disorient them. This is very important to consider for the comp that you start with, because you don't know what the other team is starting with. So coming out of the gate with a good comp is very helpful. Let me give you an example. I think a great starting comp is something like Venom, Magneto, notice how many times I'm saying Magneto, Spider-Man, Hela, Mantis, and Invis. What you have in that comp are 2 hypermobile characters in Venom and Spider-Man that can dive onto backline strategists with ease and also get out with ease as needed, but it will force the enemy team to look back and deal with them, or they will be out of their supports. And even if you don't get picks on their supports, the fact that they had to turn their vision away from their team while the other part of your team is damaging them on the front end, that is still really, really good value. So balance in terms of role distribution is important, but also what the roles are trying to do, like dive versus stay on point, etc. And one nuance to this, if you're an experienced team and you're communicating with each other and you want to start out the gates with a comp that just goes full send on one thing, like a dive comp, do it, obviously. Some of this is advice for more of the solo/duo queue people. And if that comp that you start out the gate with does not work, the next thing to consider is counter swapping, picking heroes and forming a comp that can help break down their composition. I'm going to have a future video breaking down many different team compositions and their effectiveness and their weaknesses, but this is your opportunity to problem solve. How are they beating your team? Where is it starting from? Who is their most effective player? How can you shut them down? Unless you're going up against people deep in a gamer lean and they are insane gamers, there are answers to these questions. I wouldn't say that there are many hard counters in this game, but there are certainly heroes that are more consistently effective against other kinds of heroes. As someone who plays Spider-Man a lot, for example, Namor is one of the more challenging characters to go against. I wouldn't say he's a hard counter because I beat Namor often, but he is certainly a good counter pick, and it normally takes me a little bit more thinking to take down a Namor. And I also take it as a little bit of a badge of honor whenever a team swaps to Namor when I play Spider-Man, because I know why they did it. Learning hero counters like this will be very helpful, but you also need to know which heroes you're good with and have a chance at actually countering problematic opponents with. Just because Namor is a good counter pick to Spider-Man, it doesn't mean anything if you are absolute cheeks with Namor. The only thing that you will be countering is your team's chances of winning. There will be a video in the future to help you find your main and to measure your effectiveness with each hero, but with this, if you're a new player, I would recommend starting out picking a couple Vanguards, couple Duelists, couple Strategists to learn them and get some consistency with them for you to have counter pick options whenever your current team comp is not working against them. However, over time, I would recommend that you play at least 1 or 2 matches with every hero in the game so that you have an idea of their kit, how someone might think as they're using them, learn more about their cooldowns, that sort of thing. That will help you as you try to counter them in the future. A couple other quick tips for winning. I would say play and communicate with your team. Pick synergies that work with your comp, and also literally play near your team and help your team if they're in trouble. If you're terrified of speaking to humans, I get it. Use text chat. Ping. There's a great ping system in this game. Let your team know whenever Psylocke is diving you in the back. Information is really important in this game, so share it and listen to it when it comes. And with that also, one of the biggest reasons people lose games is positioning. You are in a third-person shooter. You are able to stand behind a wall and see what's on the other side of the wall. Take advantage of things like that. Play with natural cover. The most tanky stuff in the game is the stuff that can't be destroyed. Play next to cover that won't break down. And if you are not a tank, do not be in front of the rest of your team soaking up damage. Positioning is the thing that is going to leave you in your spawn room more than anything else. Another tip to help you get a couple wins would be to know who to focus. Whatever you do, don't just look at the front line and try to pump as much damage into them and hope that you chip them down over time. Because if you're not getting any eliminations, what you're doing is feeding the support ultimates to make the game stall out a lot longer. Instead, look for people who are isolated. Find a different off angle to try to take down a couple supports. If you're picking a role to prioritize to try to get down first, I'd probably recommend trying to focus strategist mains. But if you cut off the healing supply, you have a much higher chance of winning those team fights a lot quicker. Similar to flanking, this is a real historical military tactic to cut off an army's supply to force them into submission. In this instance, the supply would be healing. Another thing is fine-tune your settings to match your preferences. And if you're interested in seeing my settings for PC and console, I'm happy to share that with you. Just let me know in the comments. But generally, I would recommend as low of a sensitivity as you can possibly go on PC, because aiming with your elbow is much more precise than aiming with your wrist. So the more that you are able to actually swing your arm for movement, the more precise you can be with your aim. On console, on the other hand, I would actually recommend as high sensitivity as you can go, because I think more of the aiming is done by strafing on console as opposed to precise stick flicking. Also, I'd recommend getting one of those joystick extender things for your right stick at least, because I think it allows for more precision. And I'd also recommend maybe looking into getting paddles, like back buttons, that'll help you not have to move your fingers off of your sticks. Those are a couple tips to maybe help your aim. Another easy setting to shift is getting notified whenever teammates go down. That helps you not only see on the kill feed, but also hear maybe if you miss on the kill feed, oh, okay, 2 of my teammates just went down, I probably should back out, or I probably shouldn't go in and try to 1v6 this team. All right, so this video ended up being a little longer than I thought, but I hope some of this game theory stuff and some of these tips were helpful for you. And if it was helpful and you'd like to hear more Marvel Rivals strategy and tips, please feel free to subscribe for more. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and until next time, get them dubs, baby.